A very pleasant evening to you out there. Many thanks for joining us on another edition of the program National Talk on Equa Television International. My name is Joyce Jakada. Tonight on National Talk, we begin with political matters as the Supreme Court today laid to rest the dispute over the outcome of the March 2023 governorship elections in 8 states. The state includes Lagos, Kano, Zamfara, Ebonyi, Plateau, Abia, Cross River, and Bauchi. The court today affirmed the electoral victory of Barrister Caleb Mutfwang of the People's Democratic Party as governor of Plateau State. Also, Abba Yusuf of NNPP has been affirmed as governor of Kano State. Bala Mohammed of the PDP has also been affirmed governor of Bauchi State. Again, Dauda Lawal of PDP was affirmed governor of Zamfara State. Sanwo-Olu of APC in Lagos was affirmed the governor. In Cross River, court upholds Basi Otus as governor of the state, while Alex Oti is affirmed governor of Abia State, as well as Francis Nwafiro as governor of Ebonyi State. In the meantime, reactions continue to trail the suspension of the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Betta Edu, over alleged approval of payment of 585 million into a private account of a civil servant. In response to the public outreach, President Tinubu suspended the minister on Monday and directed a thorough investigation by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. This is as the revelation and subsequent suspension of Mrs. Edu coincide with the probe of her predecessor, Sadia Umar Farouk, over alleged corruption in handling of 37.1 billion social intervention funds. To make sense of this issue and more, I have Barrister Sam Tokz, who is a legal practitioner. Good evening, and thank you for joining us on National Talk tonight.
Good evening, viewers. It's a pleasure being here.
Well, we're really grateful that despite your busy schedule, you really created time to be with us
It's
today.
always my pleasure.
Thank you. Let's begin with the judgment that was passed today.
Yes.
It is more like, the court has laid to rest all the disputes over the outcome of the governorship elections in about 8 states.
Yes.
And, you know, after the election, there were a lot of conversations on the street, public opinions. People were saying, it's like now if the court does not do what is expected, and then they are just like giving up. Some people have even said, I will not even vote again because it's more like the mandate of the people has been truncated, and so they are giving up on the judiciary. Some say, there's no hope on the judiciary because it's like a case of he who pays the piper dictates the tune. So they are already giving up that since at the top it is not our party, so apparently the judgment will not be in our favor. But as we speak right now, the Supreme Court today laid to rest all the disputes in 8 states. And these states include Lagos, Kano, Zamfara, Ebonyi, Plateau, Abia, Cross River, and then Bauchi. And I can tell for sure, since I'm in Plateau State, there are a lot of celebrations are actually ongoing on the streets. And some people are already saying, Happy New Year. It's like we're starting all over again. But as a legal practitioner, I've been really hopeful that in a nation such as Nigeria, where it's more like the situation is really trivial. People are really scared, this outcome, if it's not in line with the mandate of the people or what is expected, it might result to different things, and the image of the judiciary was also at stake. But what is your reaction to all this?
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate Plateau people for speaking out very loud in terms of the elections, and also to congratulate Barrister Caleb Mutfwang. I want to say that, just like you've rightly observed, the truth of the matter, the court is not doesn't give judgments based on public opinions. In fact, the social media has turned into a battleground because people don't have an understanding of the workings of court when it comes to election petitions. The court, usually it's said that the election petitions are sui generis, meaning that they are a special kind of court. It is seasonal and it is time-bound. And when people kept, in various forums, people wanted to know what will happen in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is another different level. It doesn't have to, in fact, some of the judgments of the Court of Appeal, usually it's persuasive to them. And some of us had the opinion, and we held the opinion so strongly that once a matter is before the Supreme Court, it's 50-50 chances, because the reason for any decision, what we call ratio decidendi in law, there must be a reason for the decision. And in these terms, an internal affairs of a political party is usually exclusive to to that political party. And the Electoral Act 2022 is very explicit on such matters. Yes, the issue of election petitions could be pre and post. But when it is post, it has to do with the qualification of the candidate in terms of the documents he submitted to INEC. But this time around, it's on the issue of their Congress, and it's their internal affairs. In Abia State, similar situation, similar facts, and that was why the court had to state clearly that it is a pre-election matter. Looking at another party coming to challenge that as a meddlesome interloper. So on all these factors, the Supreme Court has succinctly laid to rest the controversy in the aspect of pre-election matters, stating that issues of Congress is an explicit matter that has to do with, and it is also statute barred for you to come and be talking about the judgment of a court in respect to that Congress, whether it was obeyed or not. That's another different level of conversation. But I will personally say that I will commend the Supreme Court. There's always, one of the problems we have in Nigeria is like they say that the judiciary is the hope of the common man. But I want to say that judiciary is the hope of everybody who needs justice. So it's a different ball game entirely, but I will commend the Supreme Court for coming out clear to lay to rest these controversies. And I pray that now it's time for governance. It's no longer time for political issues.
Very true, and I think this is what is key in all of this governance.
Well.
But quickly, I would like you to speak to, because some people are already raising concern over some members of their State House of Assembly that were actually, the appeal was not in their favor. That's at the appeal court now was not in their favor, because it's the same issue, structure. I'm using Plateau State, for example, now, the issue of structure and all of that, and the judgment was not in their favor at the appeal court. Like, what is their hope at this moment?
As painful as it is, there's nothing anybody can do about that, because the Court of Appeal is the final court as far as National Assembly matters are concerned. So until after 4 years. Wow. Another option, which people are still looking at, the option is an issue of recall. If your member doesn't do, there are procedures for recalling. But when it comes to the judgments, no court, even the Supreme Court, does not have jurisdiction to review the judgment of the Court of Appeal in respect to National Assembly, because it's the court of finality as far as elections petitions are concerned for National Assembly. So there's nothing anybody can do until after 4 years. Or the only another option, it's a recall of the members. But I want to assure you that those people who have were given judgment by the Court of Appeal still are the members of their representatives in their various constituencies, so there's nothing anybody can do on that.
All right, let's go back to the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. Yes. Last weekend, a lot of social media opinion, people were talking left, right, and center. It was more like a week after the minister approved the suspension of one of the officers in that ministry, and it was linked to misappropriation, all of that, a memo went out showing how that she approved payment of 585 million naira to a private account as against the Financial Act of 2009. And that generated a lot of reaction. But there was a very quick response coming from the president. Monday evening, there was suspension of the minister, and it was with immediate effect. In fact, we saw how that the following day, EFCC invited her, and as we speak right now, her passport has been seized. She cannot travel out because of the investigation that is actually ongoing. This ministry is supposed to be a ministry that should look at the suffering of the people, the pain that the people are going through. But it's unfortunate, this is not even the first time. Like, it's even coinciding with her predecessor, who was invited by the EFCC over 37.1 billion fraud case like that, still under investigation, and then she also was invited. I just want to get your reaction. A lot of people have reacted. In fact, the Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi has commended the president. A lot of people commended the president for the swift response, and some were like, oh, if you don't do anything about it, it's an indictment to your government, because you are like, oh, are going to deal with any corrupt cases. Even though some people have slightly different opinions, say it's because it's a woman, that's why you just saw swift response. She's not the first person that cases of fraud are mentioned, but why the swift response? What do you make of? It's barely a year. It's barely a year. And Betta Edu is one of the ministers that has made the administration of President Tinubu to be like applauded. In fact, 3 months ago, I think the UN applauded him for actually picking her as a minister, saying that she has been doing well and she has put everybody on his or her foot in terms of humanitarian affairs,
Yes.
but this is already coming. In fact, another minister of interior was also name was mentioned, even though I think he has been bailed or something.
Yes,
He has
yes.
on bail and all of that. But what is your reaction to this alleged 585 million disbursement scandal of
Very
Dr.
well. It's a
Betta
very
Edu?
good question. My personal opinion is that section 713 of the Financial Regulations 2009 is very explicit. It said no funds, government funds, shall be transferred into individual account. That's anything outside that. In fact, the reason behind that particular section is that it intends, if anybody has a fraudulent mindset in terms of embezzling government funds, that section takes care of that. So it's an illegality. That 582.7 million naira ordinarily shouldn't have been transferred into an individual's account. That is one. Secondly, if anything above 500 million, the Federal Executive Council is duty bound to vet that before those payments are made. And if you follow from what you have just even the background you have said on this particular topic, you will understand that she even suspended a staff in terms of issues of financial misappropriation and things like that. A junior staff who was suspended. Not quite long then, this came up. And the Accountant General of the Federation, I think Oluwatoyin, was able to, she didn't pay the money, queried the payment of that money into an individual's account. Meaning that this woman did, the conversation is around these ministers had orientation before becoming ministers. It means that the orientation didn't go to the roots of the matter in terms of issues of corruption, because in terms of even government bureaucracy, because it goes from one table to the other. A minister has no business in the issue of transfer of monies into an individual's account. That should have been hammered well. For this to have happened, it means that either the person has been corrupt all this while, and a platform has been created for the person to continue with the issue. The conversation is not even around her as an individual, because we are looking at the seat, that ministry itself. The ministry was created to alleviate the poverty of the poorest in Nigeria. Now, the ministry has been turned into a ground of embezzlement by those people who have consistently been on that ministry. Not about the individuals, not about the gender now. We're talking about that ministry being created to help the needy, to help those people who are poor in Nigeria. Then those people who have come to lead the ministry have consistently used that platform to embezzle monies for their personal gains. Now, coming back to the issue, it is clear by law that an illegality has been done. But the law is also tried that you cannot call Betta Edu a convict yet, because she's still under investigation. So the investigation, by the provisions of the law, by the reason for the outcry by the public, I would say the reason is because people have gone through what the law says. If there's an illegality, the country has, over the years, just technically, people who have been corrupt in the past have not been convicted. And that is why the outcry. Why this short, you said it, why this short period? Why do you have to go ahead after you have actually suspended someone for similar facts? Then you have gone ahead. And even the payment of that particular amount of money was paid without due process being followed. So I would think I would join my voice. As far as I'm concerned, it was an illegality. It was wrong. Whether it was Betta Edu or with any other ministry, it is about corruption in Nigeria. It's a systemic corruption. If somebody else is supposed to pay the money and the minister now gave an order, pay it into this personal account. And I'm glad that this thing came out. He said it leaked. It's not about leaking. If the Nigeria was serious about corruption, this thing would have been a public thing, even not that it leaked before anybody got to hear about it. So I joined my voice to the voice of Nigerians who are against this act. It is an illegality, and the cause of law must take its course as far as Betta Edu is concerned. And I feel that, like you've rightly said, President Tinubu has done excellently well. It's a step in the right direction, short period of time, but he wants to tell Nigerians that I mean business.
Really business. Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Because you see, Nigeria as a country has suffered over the years.
well.
A lot of people have said, you see, the bane of our development is this corruption. Like people just vie for positions, get it, and it's more like, oh, it's my turn to cut my share of the national cake. And every slight opportunity they get, money is being siphoned. In fact, some people have called for scrapping of that ministry because over time, like I just said, just few days after her predecessor was invited, Hajia's Umar Farouk, like was invited, and Sadia Umar Farouk was invited, and we are seeing Dr. Betta Edu barely a month into the ministry, and like you rightly pointed out, was it that there was no orientation? These people have been screened. In fact, people are asking questions, who recommended all of these people? Like, these are things that are clearly spelled out in the constitution, in the law. Like I said, it's against the Financial Act 2009 for you to transfer money, but we're seeing a memo that the minister is approving. We said we don't have money as a nation. We are indebted. We are borrowing money, and yet you see humongous amount of money being siphoned. This is an allegation and it's being investigated. But like many Nigerians are saying, this is not just the only case. And like you said, if we're really serious about the business of fighting corruption, I think it's something that is doable. But the political will is one of the things that people have over the time said, oh, it's like we don't want to, because when I try to, my own page is going to be opened as well. But I would like to get your thoughts on this issue of corruption in our own system today. Like, are you concerned over the level of corruption in this country? And not just about Betta Edu, because there are so many others under the carpet. Like, if we go to the issue of subsidy, how that committees have been set over and over again, and then nothing comes out of it. You hear of issues of, oh, we have recovered this loot, and nobody gives account of anything. I would like to get your thoughts, if you're really concerned about this issue of corruption.
Very concerned. I would want to say, from before I even talk about corruption, you see, the way we select people who lead either ministries or leadership in Nigeria generally, we don't do background checks on people. Personally, when I started hearing the outcry or reading about the outcry, I personally made a check on Betta Edu to find out what was her antecedent before she became a minister. Because that is very crucial. I'm not just talking about her, but I made a background check and I discovered that when she was, I think she's a medical doctor, during the COVID-19, I think in Cross River, I think she made a post about ventilators that were supplied by the government, and it was a lie. And the enemy in Cross River actually passed a vote of no confidence on her, on that issue. That when she came out to contest for the women leader of APC, now she said that it was a political statement that was made by enemy. But it should have gone further to checkmate her personality. This is probably just one out of the many issues that were surrounding her. You know, apart from that, she's a young person. And usually we kept saying that the young people should be given opportunity to lead. But from records, it has shown that people who were given opportunity to lead as young people has done even worse in terms of financial misappropriation than those people who have. If somebody within 5 months or within few months will be able to do this is just one. I'm talking that 582.7 million naira is just a little out of the billions that are still
been another case of flying to Kogi State.
Yes, where there's no airport in Kogi. So the truth of the matter, the systemic corruption from the civil servants, the system is corrupt. Like you've rightly said, everybody gets an opportunity to lead. All he's thinking about is what can I be able to afford to harness for my family, whether it's the illegal way. Nobody is talking about how to make Nigeria better in terms of corruption. Places like China, once you are caught in corrupt practices, it's death sentence. And that has served as a deterrent to others who would want to try that part. So I'm very concerned in terms of when Buhari came, he lied to Nigerians that he was going to fight corruption. And once his cronies were involved, the investigation would go on, and you will not hear about the matter again. So personally, I've been very concerned about the issues of corruption in Nigeria, because you see somebody living a flamboyant life while he cannot afford that ordinarily. And so, because it's taxpayers' monies, like you said, it's national cake, let me get my own share and move. But that has eaten deep into the system, where it affects even the educational sector, every sector you can think of. Corruption is embedded because it has been technically legalized, because people see when we go to our religious worship centers, people who steal out of government funds are the people that are given big seats in church and in front of the church, whether it's mosque or church. These are the people that are celebrated. In fact, in some far northern states, you find out that even public funds are taken to build a worship center, meaning that that's an act of corruption, because every public funds, there are procedures, and huge public funds should be disbursed and spent. But you find out that, just like you mentioned, there's no airport in Kogi State, but you tell us that you took 3 million to fly to Kogi, but nobody's challenging it, because they always find fake receipts to do retirements to show that these things are there. But I'm personally very concerned. I hope that in the nearest future, if it should be sustained, this issue is not just about better edu. There are other people whose their sins have not been exposed to the public, and that is why we're saying that corruption is an epidemic, endemic, how do we call it, a serious matter as far as the Nigerian political system is concerned, and also the democracy of Nigeria. It has eaten deep. And so I would say that corruption, I'm against the issues of corruption, public funds, or anything corruption, in terms of whether it is people buying judgments, people trying to prove that we can get judgment because, and all those kind of things. It's systemic corruption.
That's a very powerful one, dear, if you ask me. And I really hope that we'll be deliberate. Like I said, it's not like some of these issues are not out in the public, but the political will to deal and bring an end to it is what is actually missing. Like you rightly said, we have been advocating not too young to roll. We've been advocating women involvement and all of that. And people are celebrating. I said, she's one of the ministers that has made even the international body, like international, will celebrate the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But just unfortunately, that just barely a year into the tenure, she's already found like with this kind of allegations and all of that. And I just hope that the needful is going to be done. People have said, see, Nigeria has enough for everybody's need. But you see, it is greed that has kept us where we are today. Everybody just want to embezzle and then just take it to some foreign accounts or go and invest in some foreign nations, and sometimes people die, and you just years after that you're hearing recovered monies that should have been invested in this nation to make lives of the average Nigeria better. Like, we're talking about the basic needs of the people, yet we keep seeing ourselves where we are today. And still on the case of this allocation of 585 million naira, most of the parties involved, like Better Edu, is saying, oh, I'm not guilty, even though like people have, the memo is out there, I'm not guilty, I did not do any, I didn't steal, for like they are just being defensive of that act. And yet an investigation is already ongoing. Some people have even said, see, just scrap this ministry, since it's obvious that people are just taking advantage of it to enrich themselves. But other Nigerians have said, can we have some private investigative bodies investigate this ministry, in fact, from inception? Because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should not just look like at the now, but people that have stolen from public funds should be made to pay. And my worry is this is not the first time we see that, okay, investigate these cases. Like I said earlier, on the case of fuel subsidy, how money was diverted years back. In 2012, a committee was set up, and then you just hear nothing about it. Obviously, like it's just swept under the carpet. Currently, like I said, the EFCC have invited her, and she honored the invitation. Her international passport has been seized. Investigations actually ongoing. But what expectation do you have from this investigation that is ongoing, and the call by Nigerians to actually scrap the ministry or engage private investigation?
Well, very good question. I personally don't think that the ministry should be scrapped, because any ministry that aims to alleviate poverty from Nigerians should be encouraged. The personalities that have led the ministry have performed terribly. Doesn't mean that we don't have Nigerians who could do better and set the ministry on a platform where poor people can be able to access these funds, because Nigerians should know that foreign donors send monies to this ministry for the poor of the poorest. World Bank has handled some of these matters. So I am not an advocate that the ministry should be scrapped, because something should be done about the people who head the ministry. So in my personal opinion, I feel that the ministry should be in place, because you look at the social investment program that has happened, the Empower, where some of our relations have benefited from that, and it has reduced the burden on some of us. So if you look at it, it has affected lives generally. So it doesn't mean that the ministry cannot be set on the right course in terms of leadership. And on the issue of the investigation, let me assure you that Nigeria has adequate laws and also platforms legal platforms where how investigation should be done, how somebody should be charged to court, and also conviction in terms of issues like that. So I would say personally that let's allow the investigation go on and see the outcome. Nigerians are becoming more aware of their rights than what it was before, years back. Now, I'm sure, I want to assure you that Nigerians will follow up this investigation, and the president of the country, for this body language alone, it's enough to say that he needs to sustain it. Because if anything comes out against what is expected, because there's an expectation and there's also provision of law. So if she's not found guilty, one of the funniest thing I saw that was written by one of our aides is like, it is normal to transfer public funds to private accounts. It is not true. He was saying that after all, you can retire by receipts. But the law is very clear about it. That's Section 713 is very clear of the Financial Regulations Act, like we've read 2009, like we've already said. So now it is important that after EFCC must have done their investigation, it is required by law, they charge her to court. And if she's convicted, she should serve her sentence, because or if there's an option of fine, depending on what our laws are saying. But I think that this time around, we expect to see that not just the pronouncement, not just the suspension, not just the investigation. We intend to see that she's been charged to court, and the cause of the law should, if she's actually not guilty, if it's not proven, she should be declared as such. But if I were her, I would honorably, even if after being declared that there are no gray areas as far as the law is concerned, I would resign.
That's a powerful one. Thank you so much, Barrister Sam Tokz, for your great analysis on National Talk. Really appreciate your time on the show. And it's important for you to know that in an attempt to sanitize the education system, the federal government have set committee to probe private universities over fake certificates. When we're back from the break, we continue the discussion. Stay with us.
The gospel of Jesus Christ is our Heavenly Father's plan for the happiness and salvation of His children. Equa Television International shares the gospel of Jesus Christ because the world must come to the realization of the power in the atonement of sin through the grace and mercy of Jesus Christ. Sharing with the world the message of hope that can clean anyone from sin to enjoy the peace that is in Him. Equa Television International is live 24/7, preaching the message of salvation and truth to the world. Pray for Equa TV. Support Equa TV. Be part of Equa TV. Keep watching Equa Television International.
Thank you so much for staying with us on National Talk. In another development, the fake degree scandal which started on social media by an undercover journalist who revealed he obtained a degree within 6 weeks and even proceeded to embark on the mandatory one-year National Youth Service under the National Youth Service Corps NYSC scheme necessitated the federal government on Tuesday to launch an investigation into private universities established in the last 15 years. The Minister of Education, Professor Tehil Mamman, made this known in Abuja while inaugurating the investigative panel on fake degrees and activities of degree mills in the country. Mamman said the investigation will continue, will show if the private institution under investigation have in place prescribed facilities, adequate management structure, and adequate funding of programs, amongst others. He noted that the interministerial committee set up to look into the activities of illegal universities would also examine the veracity of allegations of degree certificate racketeering within both foreign and local private universities in Nigeria. Recall, Nigeria currently has a total of 147 private universities. This is as checks on the National University Commission's website indicates that 107 of them were established in the last 15 years. Joining me now to discuss the recent issues of fake degree certificate is Dr. Emmanuel Usoji. Good evening and welcome to National Talk.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here once again.
Thank you. This is another development after the issue of the allegation on Dr. Betta Edu, the scandal around 585 million naira that was alleged to be approved by her to a private account, and still in a bid to sanitize the education system, the Minister of Education is coming out to say that a committee has actually been set to investigate the issue around fake degree certificate from both foreign and even private local universities. And you recall that a lot of concern have been generated by Nigerians following the undercover reports by an undercover journalist who revealed that he actually got a degree certificate from a foreign university just within 6 weeks. And then in Nigeria, because of 4 years, you see people going through like 6 and some even more than that just to acquire that certificate. But this is what this undercover journalist is saying. In 6 weeks, he got a degree certificate and even came down to Nigeria and even served through the NYSC scheme. And people have asked a lot of questions. So it means that there are people actually in the workforce that are actually using fake certificate, fake degree certificate. And because of these undercover reports, the federal government has suspended the evaluation accreditation of universities in Togo and Benin, and also 18 foreign universities operating in Nigeria have been banned. People have asked questions. What about students that actually went through the rigor of studying for the years that have actually been assigned to them? They are, of course, it looks like they are going to be affected, but these are just some reactions. What do you make of the ban of 18 foreign universities operating in Nigeria, and also the suspension of valuation and accreditation of university in Benin and Togo?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me here. I must start with the fact that I was one of the skeptics when it comes to the readiness of this government to actually tackle some of the teething issues we have in this country, and one of them is endemic corruption. It has grown into every system, into every facet, and I'm kind of, with the recent happenings in the last few weeks, I'm beginning to have a rethink. I think we are beginning to see some positive signals from the federal government and on the side of the president with regards to some skepticism with his moves to actually tackle the issue of corruption. Now, when it comes to the issue of these fake certificates, it's like an aftermath of a system that has been in rot for a very long time. Our problem in Nigeria must be tackled holistically. The emphasis on certificates over skill has affected us for a long time, and that has caused the rush for people to just obtain certificates at every cost. Now, you must also take cognizance of the fact that we have about 270 universities, both public and private universities in Nigeria. and out of which you rightly said about 150 something, 47 are private. Now, these institutions cannot cater for the needs of Nigerians who desire a tertiary education. Many of them have to go abroad. Some have to go as far as Ghana, have to go recently, the rush for Togo and Benin Republic. We have over 10,000 students studying in Togo and Benin Republic, some of them legitimately doing so. Now, with the recent move of the federal government, these 10,000 students are going to be gravely affected by that. But it's a positive one. There's need for us to still go back and look at what is happening within the education sector, especially at the tertiary level. So it's a positive move, it's a good development for cleaning up the system. But I must say that the emphasis should not just be placed on private universities alone, because you must understand that the private universities come in as a result of necessity. We don't have enough public universities in Nigeria, and so you have to have an alternative, even at some level of cost, for private institutions to come in to provide the requisite gap that has been created. So it's something that has to be tackled holistically. People pay for degrees, not only in private universities, but also in public institutions. So the tentacle should not just be left for private universities alone. It should also be left, you have to drag it down to the public universities as well. But one thing that is fundamental is this. Now, for any private university to operate in Nigeria, first you need to obtain a license, and to get that license you must provide an adequate proof of facilities to the NUC that you have most of the statutory requirements that it demands for you to establish a private university. There are benchmarks that you must meet and which you must satisfy before they give you a license to operate. And for you to float any program whatsoever, you must go through what they call the verification exercise. People, the NUC have to come in there to make sure that you have the right facilities, you have the right staffing, the right lecturers that are required, and everything that is needed for that program to run before you are given approval to start off the program. So if there is a gap whereby you said, okay, there are fake certificates, because I've read through some of the points of reference for the committee, the investigative panel to look at. Most of those issues are issues that are in duplicate. These are issues that are left for the NUC to do. So it means that somebody somewhere is not doing his job correctly. So we have a very serious problem with regards to the education sector, and these things must be looked at holistically. You must look at the NUC, you must look at the Federal Ministry of Education, you must also look at all the universities as well. I mean, just a few months ago, we saw ASU crying all over the place. What is the problem for the strike? Issues of facilities. They don't have enough staff, they don't have enough facilities to cater for the students. So that's why they are going, that's why they're agitating. So it's not a problem that is left for, that is found in the public universities. The public universities themselves are grossly underfunded. And therefore you are going to have people graduating with some kind of fake degrees. Because what's a fake degree? Once somebody cannot defend the certificate that he possesses, that makes it fake. So even if you have passed through a system for 4 years and you're not adequately tutored for that program and you possess a certificate, it means that it is fake. So we have an issue at hand, and that has to be addressed right from the foundation. I think that's where we need to be approaching it.
That's a great perspective to this issue. By the way, our phone lines are now open for you to actually call and add your voice. And quickly, Dr. Emmanuel, you're in the education system, and I like the fact that you brought about the issue of how that emphasis over the years have been on certificate over skills, and no wonder somebody can just go and then in 6 weeks just acquire the certificate, because it's more like, for you to gain entrance, just show me this paper, and yes, then it's a pass. Nobody talks about the skill, and that is why you have even people that go through the process, legitimately went through the rigor of training for 4 years, for 5 years, for 6 years. They come out and then they tell you that I've not been employed, I've been looking for a job, nobody's willing to employ me. Well, defend the results, and people are unable to defend their results. For every course, for some courses, they have the skill angle, and nobody is even thinking of creating something. The ideology is for you to just go to school, come out, and then get employed. So even though the narrative is beginning to change, because people have obviously seen that it's not just about the certificate, but you have to do something to earn. And but talking about our education system, if it was enough, if it was meeting the education needs of the people within the country, I don't think we'll have people like moving out day in, day out, trying to just get admission into foreign institution. The university in question is accredited, but this particular person is saying, in my undercover investigation, in just 6 weeks, I got this certificate. He paid 600,000. The 600,000 is not even something he paid just for the certificate. He's talking about what he spent in all of this. But when you talk about the acquisition, the getting of this certificate, and even down to him serving in the compulsory NYSC scheme, it doesn't just take one person. So, like, are you concerned about our system? You spoke earlier about underfunding and lack of equipment and all of that. We have NUC that accredits all of this. We have Ministry of Education. You can't just jump from a foreign university and just go and serve like that. There are processes you go through. Yeah. So are you concerned about, it still bounce back to the issue of corruption, though, but I don't know your thoughts about this.
I think the whole thing is just a kind of a pension. Like I said earlier, the crave for people to just get a paper qualification rather than the skill, and it's a product of a system that has been misguided over years. And I want to feel that much more work needs to be done on emphasis on training and getting skills. Let people be trained to know what to do, not just by the paper that they carry. That is one. Once the emphasis is on skill, then the quest for going to obtain certificate or paper qualifications at whatever cost will be diminished. And I must say that this is just an incident out of many. It's just it's the Togo where Benin Republic has just been in the news and all of that. We have so many people. If you look dig down into Nigeria, you could have that there are people who are also buying certificates in this country.
Public institutions.
Yes, public institutions.
This probe is just geared at
It's all
private
about,
universities.
yes,
but does that mean that our public institutions are free of all of this?
There are so many ways people can, when you have the money, you can get away with anything. It's just about who is in the system and what does the system permit you to do. When you have a right system, you have a functional system, you have a system that is guided by laws and procedures, you find that it is difficult for people to get away with these things. But I'm telling you right now that somebody who has 10 million naira and is ready to pay 10 million naira can get somebody who is ready to collect 10 million naira to give him a degree. Even in 1 week. This one is 6 weeks. It's even too long. Even in 1 week, somebody can pay to get a degree as long as the system permits him to get away with it. I've seen people who have degree certificates and yet cannot speak a 10-sentence word that is correct. So how did they get there? How do they obtain those certificates? So we have an endemic problem that needs to be addressed. But what I want to emphasize is that the problem is not, I am a little bit surprised that the emphasis is on private universities, because I feel, for once, that private universities in the philosophy of its establishment has come to fill up a gap. And most of them are doing very well. But I believe that there are some that needs to be properly looked into, properly guided on what to do and all of that. And there's need definitely for the federal government to actually clamp down on some institutions that are operating illegally in this country. We call them certificate milling institutions. You just go there, you pay money, and then in 6 weeks you get your degree. That's very ludicrous, but it's happening all over the place. So we must, it's a right step, it's a first step in the right direction. I think it's the first step we need to take, but other steps need to be taken. The tentacles have to spread across all educational institutions to ensure that the right thing is done. And once the right thing is done, it becomes difficult for people to do these things and get away with it.
That's very true. Yeah. Far beyond private varsities, like you rightly said, they are just there to cover all the vacuum, the space, and rightly said, some are doing absolutely well. And this is not just to say, oh, our public institutions are free of all of these things. So this investigation should be all-encompassing. Yes. Nobody should actually be left out. The National Association of Nigerian Students have actually come out to talk about this, the decision of the federal government to actually ban the foreign universities operating in Nigeria, as well as suspension of evaluation and accreditation of some of the institutions in Benin and then Togo. And we will not disregard the fact that there are students that in some of these institutions, and like I said, some of them the institution have been accredited, and that means there are students that are legitimately going through the rigor of learning and then training. But right now, if the federal government is saying, oh, we've suspended accreditation and then evaluation of this institution, of course they are going to be affected. And then for the 18 foreign universities operating in Nigeria, who approved them in the first place? And then on what grounds were they actually approved? And for them to be operating in Nigeria as well, it means that Nigerian students are in such institutions. But now I'm calling on the federal government to actually consider their decision, especially as it affects some of these students that are legitimately going through this rigor. Like, what do you make of the decision or the call by now to the federal government? I think we have a call.
My view in what they are saying here is that the government, our president, should send into all the county from the grassroots the supervision team to watch over all those criminal teachers. Should I call them teachers or what? Because this thing has eaten up our educational section. So please, the president should do something about it. Should send out supervisors to supervise and prop all those criminal educational, should I call them board or something? So that's my view. Thank you.
Thank you so much for quoting. Like, a lot of people are saying it's an indictment to the Ministry of Education and they have to be up and about to do something. But NANS is saying reconsider your decision. What's your take on that?
Yes, I feel that NANS, they have a point, because you cannot take away that you have 10,000 Nigerians who are studying outside of this country, not out of their own making. If we have all the universities that can cater for them, they won't be going out. So it's a legitimate cry for them, for the government to look at these ones who are studying legitimately. But it doesn't take away the fact that we also need to take this discovery very seriously. So I feel that there is need for them to also look at the approach. It cannot take away. There is need for the government to actually take a second look at these institutions, whether they are private, they are public, or they are foreign operating in Nigeria, their modus operandi and all of that. But we must also consider that there are people who are Nigerians who are legitimately pursuing their educational career in such foreign institutions, some in Nigeria and some outside of Nigeria. But as it is, there's need to look at it. All right, there's need to look at it, and while looking at it, there should be some kind of consideration for this one so that they are not adversely affected. They are Nigerians and they are pursuing their degrees, and it's not their own making that they have to go and seek for, admission outside the shores of this country. We also need to approach it with a human face, but you cannot, take away the fact that the government is taking a right decision to take a second look based on this discovery. Even if it is one isolated case, you must look at how these institutions operate. How did this young man get this certificate? Who is responsible? Who is responsible for accrediting the program and all of that? So at the end of the day, you're able to come out with a solution, and then everybody is happy. People are not adversely affected. That's just it.
All right, let's talk about the system, our educational system, beyond varsities, beyond private universities and then public universities. At some years back, there was a report by a local newspaper or a reporter about how that an institution in Nigeria, an education college, like a college of education,
so first of all, I want to applaud the federal government for looking into the problems that are in this private session. But I also feel that they should put more attention in the federal universities because people are losing hope in Nigeria's educational sector, and that's why they are looking for alternatives. So I feel that the government should actually look into federal universities and try to improve Nigeria's educational sector, especially in the universities, before looking into other private sectors. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for calling. That was a beautiful point there. Thank you. So still talking about sanitizing the system now, like the educational system generally. I was talking about how that a reporter came up with an investigation too in one of the colleges of education of how that students, instead of writing project, they would just pay, and when they pay, the lecturer or the supervisor will give them a project that they will just go write their names and all of that. We've had cases of sex for marks. We've had a lot of cases of, in fact, people graduating from the institution going through the years, but they can't defend. They've not acquired any skill. When it comes to interview, I think employers will be the best position to talk about what they see. Sure. Beautiful certificate, but yet people cannot defend it when tax is actually given to them. How can the system be sanitized? Like, wholly, we are not just talking about private institutions, like the ones that emerged in the last 15 years. Public institutions have been existing for years. Like, there are all of these issues year in, year out. You see ASU going on strike, ASUP among others, association, because of unmet demands, issues revolving around facilities that will aid in impacting knowledge and all of that. How can we sanitize the educational system generally in Nigeria?
I think if we must be very honest and sincere, the educational system in this country needs a serious moral and holistic revolution. We have a serious problem, and it's not just at the tertiary level. It's right from the primary to the secondary, and then it moves on to the university. We must understand one thing is that on the part of the government, what is the percentage allotted to the educational sector? That's the problem. The lack of facilities in public institutions, especially at the federal university, is a result of there's no funding, proper funding for these people. And once you don't have fund, you're going to have, first of all, you're going to have quacks in the system, like you just said. It is these quacks that are aiding and abetting the system of pay for projects, sex for marks, and all of that. Because you have people who have come out of a corrupt system. They have been product of a system that is corrupted. And definitely nobody can give what he does not have. So whatever it is that the system has made out of you is what you're going to impact to the next generation. And I feel very sorry to say that I have looked at our system when it comes to education. We have a very long way to go. First of all, we must also look at how do you train people who work in these institutions. That's the problem. Norway, for example, Finland, for example, that has the highest, best standard of education in this country, find out from what's happening there. The highest paid personnel in that country is not somebody who works in the oil industry. It's somebody who is a teacher. And only the best brains get employed or get hired. So why won't they have the highest standards of education in the whole world?
Unfortunately, some of our public institutions, when you are withdrawn from a particular faculty, the only faculty that you are going to be sent to is education.
It's education.
Unfortunately.
Yes. And then that's okay. Go to our secondary schools and find out the quality of the teachers that we have there. These are people who couldn't get jobs elsewhere, and then the next thing to fall back on is let me just go and teach in one school where they will just something to survive. So you have a product that is already already faulted. And for you to correct it, that's why I said it must be something that we must be revolutionary in our approach. There's need for government to begin to look at how do we make the educational sector very attractive. You must have the right investment, you must have the right training, and you must have the right policy backing such sector to improve. I must say, if I lecture in the university, I see brains, quality brains. I see people who have great potentials, young minds who have great potentials, but everything is shrouded within a faulty system, and you cannot actually, harness the entire potential that these people possess. As soon as they are done with their first degree, they're out of the country. And then that's where you see them doing great things, leaving the country impoverished. Everybody wants to get out of the country because there's nothing here for them to do. So we must understand that there is need for us to make this sector attractive. First of all, you must address the issue of manpower. Those who are responsible for imparting education in this country must be people who are morally upright, who have the right training, who are the best brains, who are qualified, and give them let them be the people who are the highest paid, not politicians, not people who work in the oil sector. It is teachers that are producing these people. So the teachers themselves should be the people who they should be looking up to. So once you have that, it becomes very competitive, and you're not going to have people who are just coming from everywhere to just come to the classroom and then, do whatever they like. So these are some of the things that I think that we need to do. And I feel that if we have the right policy, the right approach, we're going to get there. But I'm very optimistic now. With what I'm seeing happening, I'm very optimistic that something is being done to address these things.
So I think we need to applaud the government,
yes,
and even the Minister of Education for swiftly acting into this. It's something that started as a social media post, but we saw how that a committee has actually been set up. But far beyond setting up a committee, we need to see deliberate action being taken to ensure that an end is being brought to this, because people have shared concern about people in the workforce with fake certificates and people that actually have the best brains not having space in the workforce. And no wonder we have ministries, parastatals, that nothing come out of it year in, year out, and then budget is being allocated to that. But for a great nation, it takes collective effort, and I must say, and we must speak against any evil, not just in our educational sector, but in our nation entirely. Thank you so much, Dr. Emmanuel Usoji, for your time on National Talk. Really appreciate your perspective. And to our viewers out there, we really appreciate your time on National Talk. Thank you for calling to share your perspective. Our leaders must understand that they owe it as a responsibility to the public to do the needful, especially as governance demands of them. More importantly, is that the primary responsibility of the government is to ensure that the lives and properties of the people are safe. Democracy is a theory that the common people know what they want and deserve to get it good. Until we come your way next time with another edition of National Talk, stay blessed.